It is the second year of the Hijrah. The Muslims have found a home in Medina, but they are not yet safe. The wolves of Mecca are prowling the trade routes, and the hypocrites within the city are sharpening their tongues. In the month of Shaban, a new command descends from the seven heavens. It is not an order to sharpen swords or build walls. It is a command to build the soul. O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you, as it was prescribed for those before you. For the first time in history, the month of Ramadan is sanctified. The companions are ordered to abstain from food, drink, and desires from dawn until sunset. To the outside observer, this seems like madness. The community is threatened by the most powerful army in Arabia, the Quraysh. Conventional military logic dictates that soldiers should eat, rest, and build physical strength. But the logic of heaven is different. Allah intends to forge a new kind of warrior. He wants men who can conquer their own appetites before they conquer an enemy on the battlefield. They do not know it yet, but this first Ramadan will not be spent in quiet prayer. It will be spent in the dust and heat of the march. They are about to face their first great test. But to understand the Battle of Badr, we must first understand that this was not a random skirmish in the sand. It was the explosion of a pressure cooker that had been building for 2 years. The Quraysh of Mecca and the Muslims of Medina were in a cold war. But in the month of Ramadan, 2 AA, the Cold War turned hot. History often lists the caravan as the only reason, but that is a simplification. There were 4 critical pillars that made this war inevitable. The first reason was economic survival. The Muslims in Medina were refugees. When they migrated, the Quraysh in Mecca confiscated their homes, their money, and their businesses. The Muhajirin were destitute. Meanwhile, the Quraysh economy relied entirely on 2 massive trade caravans a year, one to Yemen, one to Syria. In early 2 AA, a massive caravan was returning from Syria. It was led by the cunning Abu Sufyan. It consisted of 1,000 camels and carried wealth estimated at 50,000 gold dinars. Almost every household in Mecca had invested in this caravan. The Prophet's plan was strategic: intercept the caravan. This was not simple robbery, it was a blockade. It was a message to the Quraysh: if you ban us from our homes, we will ban you from your trade routes. It was a move to choke the economic lifeline of the enemy. The second reason was vendetta. In Arabia, blood never dries. Shortly before Badr, a small Muslim patrol had encountered a Quraysh group at a place called Nakhla. In the skirmish, a Quraysh chieftain named Amr ibn al-Hadrami was killed by a Muslim arrow. For the Quraysh, this was an outrage. They screamed for blood. When the army marched out of Mecca towards Badr, they were not just coming to save their money, they were chanting the name of Amr ibn al-Hadrami. They were coming to balance the scales of death. The most critical reason: the war could have been avoided. Abu Sufyan, the leader of the caravan, was a genius. He sensed the danger, diverted the caravan along the coast, and escaped the Muslim trap. He sent a message to the Quraysh army: the wealth is safe, go home. Rational leaders would have returned, but the Quraysh army was led by Abu Jahl, the man the Prophet called the Pharaoh of this nation. Abu Jahl refused to turn back. His logic was pure arrogance. He declared, "By Allah, we will not go back until we come to Badr. We will spend 3 days there, slaughter camels, drink wine, and listen to singing girls, so that all of Arabia will hear of us and fear us forever."
He did not want safety, he wanted a show of force. He wanted to crush the upstart Muslims so they would never dare look at Mecca again. Finally, there was the threat of extermination. The Quraysh had not left the Muslims alone in Medina. They had sent threatening letters to the hypocrites in Medina, demanding they kill the Muslims or face invasion. A Meccan chieftain, Qurs bin Jabir, had even raided the pastures of Medina and stolen cattle. The Prophet knew that if he did not stand up to Abu Jahl now, the Quraysh would eventually march on Medina and slaughter every man, woman, and child. When the Prophet marched to Badr, it was a preemptive strike. It was a message that the Muslims were no longer victims, they were a state that would defend its borders. Ramadan arrives, but instead of resting in the cool shade of the date palms, the Muslims are ordered to march. News has arrived. A massive Quraysh caravan, laden with 50,000 dinars of wealth, is passing near Medina, and marching to protect it is an army of 1,000 Meccan warriors, armed to the teeth, led by the pharaoh of this nation, Abu Jahl. The Prophet sets out with 313 men. They are ill-equipped. They have only 2 horses and 70 camels to share between them. Most walk barefoot on the burning sands, and they are fasting. Pause and imagine the physical reality. Thirst in the desert is a torture. Hunger weakens the knees. Yet these men march on. They do not complain. The fast has taught them discipline. It has detached them from the material world. When a man does not need bread to survive the day, he does not fear death. They reach the wells of Badr. It is the 17th of Ramadan. The 2 armies face each other. The contrast is terrifying. 1,000 well-fed, well-armored idolaters against 313 hungry, fasting believers. The night of the 17th of Ramadan. In the Quraysh camp there is arrogance. They have slaughtered camels. They drink wine. They sing of the victory they haven't yet won. They rely on their numbers. In the Muslim camp there is silence. The Prophet stands in a small hut made of palm branches. He raises his hands to the sky. He cries until his cloak falls from his shoulders. He cries out, "O Allah, if this small band is destroyed today, you will not be worshipped on earth any more." The battle begins at dawn. The Muslims, weakened by hunger but strengthened by faith, stand like a wall of iron. The Quraysh charge, but they hit something hard. They hit the will of men who have sold their souls to the Almighty. In the heat of the battle, the Prophet picks up a handful of dust and throws it at the enemy, crying, "May these faces be disfigured." It is a turning point. A wind rises. The accounts tell us that angels descended to strike alongside the believers. The 1,000 warriors of Mecca shatter. The arrogance of Abu Jahl ends in the dust. By sunset, the impossible has happened. The superpower of Arabia has been broken by a small band of fasting men. The 17th of Ramadan becomes the day of Criterion, the day truth was separated from falsehood. The news of victory travels fast. The messenger, Zayd bin Haritha, rides his camel into Medina, shouting the names of the Quraysh chieftains who have fallen. The city erupts in joy. The takbir echoes from the rooftops. But for the Prophet's household, the joy is mixed with the salt of tears. As the news of Badr arrives, the earth of the graveyard is being settled over a fresh grave. Ruqayya, the beloved daughter of the Prophet and the wife of Uthman bin Affan, has passed away. The victory of Islam and the grief of the father collide in a single moment. It is a profound lesson for the first Ramadan. In this life, joy and sorrow are twins. The believer must be grateful in victory and patient in loss. The Prophet returns to Medina on the 22nd of Ramadan. A few days later, the moon of Shawwal is sighted. The first Ramadan ends, but it ends with a new gift. The Prophet announces the institution of Zakat ul-Fitr and the prayer of Eid ul-Fitr. For the first time, the Muslims gather not for war, but for celebration. They have passed the test, they have conquered their hunger, and they have conquered their enemies. This was the first Ramadan. It was not a month of feasts and sleeping during the day. It was a month of sweat, blood, and iron. It established a truth that would echo through the centuries. Ramadan is not the month of resting, it is the month of victory. So, when the sun rose on the 17th of Ramadan, it wasn't just about a caravan. It was about economics, revenge, arrogance, and survival. The Quraysh marched for glory. The Muslims marched for existence. And on the sands of Badr, history decided which force would rule the future of Arabia. This story was brought to you by the House of Wisdom.